Dan RadioStyle, hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Starting a new Goddard book. I'm kind of excited about it too. There's quite a bit of chapters, but a lot of little bite-sized chapters. A lot of fun. So, Your Faith is Your Fortune. First off, just the title itself. I mean, we're going into this. I'm just starting on this. First time I've read this book. But your faith is your fortune. And if you think about it, that's truly true, just from the very get-go. It's our faith, it's our belief, it's our understanding that all of this is happening, all of this is working. And that is what creates the outcome. From within ourselves, the consciousness, the way we flow, is what creates the outcome. The fortune is what creates all that. So one thing that really kind of starts off with, first off, chapter 1, it's called Before Abraham Was. It's kind of a cool little title. And really what he's talking about is prior to Abraham, which was considered in a lot of places like the father of religion, supposedly. In most cases, at least a number of religions seem to get credit back to Abraham. So kind of from the way the stories go, at least, God's basically saying, hey, dude, I need some help. Can you go out there and sort of, bring my people together and talk about things that are actually relevant to how life happens? And of course, I'm overly, hyperbolically simplifying this. But basically, that's kind of what happened. So Abraham, off he goes. Now, what's really cool is when you think about it, everything that happens to us comes from our consciousness. So I'm going to use a number of words, and I think this is really important to understand, because for so many of us, with law of attraction, we're trying to find that one thing, that one phrase, that one, no, it's assumption, no, it's feeling, no, it's gratitude, no, it's more than just one thing. It's an understanding. It's a multidimensional one thing. It's a complex, maybe, one thing. And I'm going to do my best to simplify it, but the best way I can think to do that is to give you a number of words that I think it really encompasses, right? Like it's all these things. It's not just one word. It's not just gratitude. It's not, right? And I'm not going to even use gratitude, oddly. But it's not that one thing. And so really the way it kind of in my mind sort of works is it's our consciousness. So it's what we're aware of. It's what we're focusing on. It's our understanding of the way the world works. It's our understanding of how interactions occur. It's how we're being. So how we're treating others, what we're pushing out into the universe, what we're sending out to others, what we're doing and showing. So if we're, helping another individual, like that act of being is actually creative, believe it or not. So, an elderly person maybe needing some assistance. I've used it at the grocery store frequently. Maybe an older lady that's kind of short, right? Gravity's been kind of mean to her over the 90 years, and she can't reach that top shelf. So you come along and you help. So it's that act of being. It's knowing. Knowing is one of those things where like, I know this is. I know I'm going to do this. This is happening. Like, it's that drive. It's that understanding of the way things kind of play out. Feelings. Feelings are actually what subconsciously manifests. So feelings are an extremely important component of this, but it ties in with all this other stuff. It's not, you can just feel things and not necessarily have a thought that accompanies it. Like, I just feel warm, I feel happy. Like, all right, cool. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're creating or not creating. But when you feel that something is already happening, when your consciousness is wrapped around it, when you know this is what's happening, when you understand that the feeling of what I'm imagining right now is actually creating and is making that reality right now, that's when there's a lot of power. Imagining, of course, that's a concept of giving light to thought, right? Like, I've got a thought's one thing, but it's another thing to actually imagine that thought into action. It's one thing to say, I think I'm wealthy. It's another thing to imagine being wealthy. Huge difference between the two of those, right? I think wealthy, I see a pile of money in my hand. Yeah, okay, what about imagining the house you're going to have? What about imagining the car you're going to have? What about imagining the city you're going to have? What about imagining the places you're going to travel? It's more than just, I see a pile of money in my hand. It's more than just imagining something. And assuming, a very powerful component that Goddard's been talking about a lot in the previous videos I've done and previous books. And the power of assuming can really take us through some of the places where we're just not sure how we can imagine this to be so, or how we can see the reality. Like, how can this be? Assuming kind of gets us there. Like, I don't know how I can be with my specific person, or I don't know how I can get this better job, or I don't know where I'm going to get more income or money so I can get this nicer place. But we assume There must be a way. Something's going to show up. I keep imagining it, and I know that something's going to happen. So to me, it's really like all these things. It's not simple, but it's not hard. It's just kind of an understanding of the way it all sort of plays together. Our thoughts lead to feelings, lead to imaginations, lead to beliefs, lead to us opening our minds to the possibilities of things to happen. And then we act when the moment comes. So it's a very, very powerful concept that he's bringing up. So chapter 1, before Abraham was, really gets into what the quote beginning was, and it's really cool. So short chapter, let's cover it. Maybe I'll talk a little more, and we'll try to keep this video on the somewhat shorter side, even though I'm already like 6 minutes into it. So here we go. Before Abraham was, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. That was John 8:58. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Some call that the Logos. And that's kind of sort of what it really talks about. In the beginning there was light. In the beginning there was word. In the beginning there was the presence, if you will, the knowing, the I'm aware, the awareness, if you will. So in the beginning was the unconditional awareness of being. And the unconditional awareness of being became conditioned by imagining itself to be something. And the unconditional awareness of being became that which it had imagined itself to be. So did creation begin. So essentially, this is like something finally understood. It was self-aware, right? It had awareness, and then it was like, oh, okay, let's imagine that we're something, because now I'm aware of the fact that I'm here. I'm conscious. I don't know what I am per se, but let's start to imagine. What am I? Let's start to create. And from that began the creation. So just from acknowledging that we are aware and then that we can imagine, we begin to create the life we enjoy, or that we want to enjoy. Some of us aren't enjoying it as much, but we're trying to help there. So by this law, first conceiving, then become that conceived, all things evolve out of no thing. And without the sequence, there is not anything made that is made. So first you conceive, first you think about, first you create in your mind, in your consciousness, right? Because our mind, I don't know, what's our mind? Is your mind your soul? Is your soul your mind? Is your soul something outside of your body? Who knows? I mean, there's people that study it. I'm not going to debate that right now. But your consciousness is really that awareness of us relative to others, of us relative to stuff, of us relative to this place that we're aware we're in. So before Abraham or the world was, I am. So before Abraham or the world was, I am. Let's say it that way. When all of the time shall cease to be, I am. I am the formless awareness of being, conceiving myself to be man. By my everlasting law of being, I am compelled to be and to express all that I believe myself to be. I am the eternal, no-thingness, containing within my formless self the capacity to be all things. I am that in which all my conceptions of myself live and move and have their being, and apart from which they are not. I am eternal. I am everything, right? I am everything. I am nothing. All of these things are contained within me, is what he's saying. I have the capacity to be anything I choose. And as he says here, I am that in which all my conceptions of myself live. All of the things that I hold as true inside myself, that I live with inside myself, that I understand myself to be. That's kind of consciousness to me. It's bigger than just, you got to think the right thing. You got to say the right thing. You got to do the right technique. If you didn't have gratitude, oh my God, it'll never happen. No, it's bigger than that. It's not just the words you say. It's not incantations. This isn't witchcraft. This is about being aware of the fact that we create, being aware of the thoughts that we have, being aware of the interactions that we have on the world around us, being aware of the things that happen inside of us being causation or causing things outside of us. It's paying attention to that. It's noticing that. And then on top of that, it's knowing that. And then when you know that, you begin to be that. These things lead into a larger and deeper understanding of how creation occurs. I dwell within every conception of myself. From this withinness, I ever seek to transcend all conceptions of myself. By the very law of my being, I transcend my conceptions of myself only as I believe myself to be that which does transcend. Again, Goddard writes like the craziest stuff in the shortest amount of words, which requires a lot of unpacking. But I dwell within every conception of myself, meaning every thought and feeling and belief I have of myself is where I am. I dwell in that. I am that I am. I am that. And from this withinness, I ever seek to transcend all conceptions of myself. So from within this place of understanding that I am everything that I experience, that I am the conception of myself, I am experiencing the belief of myself in the world around me and the way I believe things are around me. So by this very law of being, I transcend my conceptions of myself. If I want to be more than I am, if I want to have more than I've got, if I want to be in a certain way, be with a specific person, then be the person that's already with that person. Be what they want to be. Have them be what you want them to be. But be that. Imagine that. Focus on that. Become that. Realize that by giving that energy, thought, and power, that you're actually creating that. You're creating a space that's void of time, void of space for that matter currently, because when you're imagining it, when you're being it and feeling it, it's right here, right now. And then that does creating. That, and then the knowingness is what's like, well, I don't have to doubt this, right? Because I know this is how it happens. I know that by what I'm doing and believing and understanding from inside myself is what is going to happen outside of myself. So the only way to transcend anything is to transcend it within ourselves, to believe it's possible, to believe that we can be more than we are, to assume we can be more than we are. And when we do that, oddly, we tend to transcend. So his final sentence in this chapter, I am the law of being, and beside me there is no law. I am that I am. And it really is that simple, but it's so much more complex than that. We're a lot of things. We are that consciousness. We are the being. We are the knowing. We are the feeling. We are the imagining. We are the assuming. We are all of that. I am that I am is large. It's not just saying I am affirmations. I am great. I am wonderful. I am loved. I am wealthy. I am, no, I am with my specific person. It's more than just that statement. It is the full understanding of being. I am this thing that I'm trying to get. And by doing that and by being that and by knowing that energy gets pushed out from inside ourselves and then reflects back what we expect to see. What we expect to see is what shows, because we imagine something to be. It's not that we have to expect to make it so. No, it's we understand this is how it works, and we expect that it will work. If I know that taking the 5 freeway up Northern California will take me right into Sacramento, I know that. Then when I'm driving on the 5 freeway, I know I am heading towards the thing. I am being in the place where I can get to where I want to go. Because I know what it takes, I know where I need to go, and I know the direction. And the direction is decided by us, by that I am, by that consciousness, by that assumption, by the imagining. All of those things create that feeling inside of us, that consciousness. I mean, really, consciousness to me is the large umbrella. The power of changing our world starts inside ourselves. That I am presence. That part of us that looks in the mirror and says, yeah, I am that guy. Yeah, it's that consciousness part of you. The soul part of us, whatever. It's that internal part that makes things happen. You do it a few times, you prove it to yourself, and then from that point on, it starts to get easier and easier and easier. For a lot of beginners, it's tough because you're looking for that causation. You're looking for that proof. Once you start to establish that, once you start to understand that it's the things going on inside myself, the reason things aren't happening outside of myself is I don't believe it's so inside myself. I don't believe I can have this thing because there's a third party. I don't believe I can be with this person because we got in an argument. I don't believe I can be with this person because they're famous. I don't believe I can be with this person because they live in another state. I just don't believe. Well, I don't know why it's not happening, Dan. I do everything right. I imagine, I say positive words, I think positive thoughts. Yes, but then when you get into it, you don't believe any of this stuff. You don't see that it's happening. You don't consciously understand that this is a flow. And, you know, I use the analogy a lot, but it's the flower is opening. Once you begin to create your manifestation, it starts to bloom like a flower. It doesn't happen instantly, because from the point where you start to imagine, where you start to create, where you start to have the consciousness, the I am presence of this thing you're creating, from that moment, you create a number of stepping stones to your destination. Some things will require action. Some things just require you to notice. Some things require you to take one more step forward, whatever that might be. Maybe it's studying something. Maybe it's writing astral letters. Maybe it's doing Ho'oponopono. Maybe it's doing your resume. Maybe it's actually going out and submitting resumes to places. Maybe it's going down and test driving a car. Maybe it's actually going into a neighborhood with nicer homes so you can see what they're like. Maybe it's an issue of hanging out once in a while at a place where maybe wealthier people hang out. Maybe you've got a friend that can mentor you and spend time with them. However we get to that place, ultimately it's that expansion of consciousness, that expansion of ourself, our understanding of ourself, that creates the larger world outside ourself. I am that I am. Dan RadioStyle.